As introduced, my name is Peter Bryant. I'm from the London School of Economics. If you've not heard or don't know of the London School of Economics, we're one of the leading universities in the world that focuses almost entirely on the social sciences. So we don't have science engineering. We're very focused on the notion of social sciences, politics, government, management, business, those kind of areas. In my industry and across higher education, from about 2013, there was, like most industries, a bubble that hit us. And the bubble that hit us was these very strangely entitled things called MOOCs. I'm not sure how many people have heard, seen, done MOOCs, but massive open online courses. These things were going to transform and disrupt the entire sector. 3 years later, of course, they kind of haven't. But those MOOCs put every university, including mine, into a tailspin. And that tailspin was, we've got to do them. Well, they're doing them, Harvard's doing them, Stanford's doing them, well, we've got to do them. So when I arrived at the university in 2014, that was the first question I was asked. And my team, my area, looks after learning, technology and innovation, and they said, make us a MOOC. Okay, fine. Next question, how much money are you going to put towards it? Well, none. But make us a MOOC. So we thought 3 ways to go. One way to go was to not do them, be the university that didn't do them. Just doesn't seem to work. Be the university that did the exact same way that everyone else did them, which also didn't seem to work for us. So we came up with a third way, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Being a social science institution, a lot of what we do, a lot of what we teach, a lot of what we research is focused on making the world a better place. The motto of the LSE is to understand the causes of things, to know why something happened. So we have some very, very powerful, influential, and intellectually clever people working at our school. So for us, that was the challenge. How do we leverage that knowledge base, that research, all the learning that goes on, and bring it to an open, interesting platform where people can learn and engage? So for those of you who don't understand the basics of, or haven't really thought about the basics of most education, think back to your own education. Most education is pretty scaffolded. You've got to learn to crawl before you walk. You've got to sort of do module 1 before you can do module 2. It's all very sequential. And all these online courses and the way people learn is still quite sequential. You do week 1 to week 2, week 3 to week 4. It's also very aligned. In education, aligned means that you've got what you're meant to learn, your learning outcomes, and then all the work you do and the assessment is all linked. So you're assessed on what you learn. We've all sat in exams and had to go and regurgitate something that we've memorized. It's also very structured. Most education in the modern world is caught in what are called credentialized institutions who can issue a degree, a master's, a certificate. And it's also quite stratified. So, you know, you have higher education, you have further education, you've got vocational education, community education, and they all exist in very different worlds. And arguably they exist in a kind of status tier as well. There's a problem with this though. And the problem with this is that everything we do in our life generally isn't done in that particular way. So all the education that we deliver doesn't actually represent a lot of the way we learn, we share, we live, we connect, we change, we experience. And that's quite a disconnect for education, particularly when education in the current government funding climate spends most of its time saying that we're there to prepare people for work, prepare people for education and for life. But we asked ourselves this question, or these questions. What if the engagement that we had with people who wanted to learn could be informal? It didn't have to be in a classroom or a lecture theatre like this. It could be informal. What happens if it was led by the community and not led by an academic? What would happen if it was non-linear, that you didn't have to do week 1 before you did week 2? What would happen if it was democratic? A classroom's not democratic, it's autocratic. There's a person standing at the front telling you things, a bit like this. But it's 25 years of teaching. What happens if it was there to solve a problem, not just to simply transmit information? What happens if it was collaborative, that people work together? What happens if it was chaotic? This is quite organised and structured. A class starts at 10, finishes at 11. You do your 10 weeks, you go and do your exam. It's quite organised. What happens if it was messy? What happens if it was actually aspirational? I mean, people talk about a lot of education is that by the end of it, you've had all the aspiration beaten out of you, not instilled in you. What happens if it was emancipatory, that actually empowered you to do something, to make a change? And of course, the critical part of this is what happens if it was open. Without being arrogant, it's pretty damn hard to get into the LSE. It's not an easy institution to get into. And that's not good when there's all this knowledge caught in the walls. So how do you make that open? And then how do you do it at a massive scale? We've only got 10,500 students. The first MOOC run by Stanford had 250,000 in it. So how do you do this all at a massive scale? And how do you do it in a way that they don't have to come to you, that they don't have to sit in a lecture theatre or come to your building? We also thought about this in the context of what a lot of writers and people are talking about, the fact we're in the post-digital age. A guy called Nicholas Negroponte in 1998 quite famously asserted that the digital revolution is over. Because basically, digital technology is like air and water. And so, in fact, it will be noticed when it's not there, as opposed to noticed when it's there. So a lot of people have been referring to this as the post-digital concept, that now you are dealing with generations, not generation, generations of people for which digital technology is ubiquitous. So with this sort of context in mind, we wanted to look at three things. We're a higher education institution. We wanted to look at learning. There has to be some learning involved in this. We wanted it to be relatively massive because we wanted people to have access to the LSE and its knowledge and its research in a way that we normally can't leverage. But critical being a social science institution, we really wanted to do something around citizenship, what it meant to be a citizen in this post-digital age. And we were very much taken by the impact that the Scottish referendum had with 16, 17 and 18-year-olds who were allowed to vote in that referendum for the first time. And the way, though, that group of people engaged in a citizens' debate, we thought was really interesting. By the way, the Stormtrooper is Googling dark side for dummies. So what do we build? Here's the problem. The UK is one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have a written constitution. We have a leading human rights professor called Conor Geraghty, who has made it his passion to try and crowdsource a constitution. Best way to do it in his belief. To be fair, not an exciting area. I'm not seeing a lot of you going, woo, constitution. It's usually the realm of the arcane scholar. What we were asked to do was crowdsource the constitution. And we thought, okay, who are we going to get? A few lawyers, a couple of political science students, a few people who might have been vaguely interested. So we came up with a model that took a couple of learning approaches. Three things that were really important to us. Number one, we didn't want lectures. Number two, we didn't want week to week. And number three, we wanted it to be as participatory as possible. So we took away the lecturer. We took away the books. We took away the readings. There was no reading. There was no course. We engaged individuals and groups and said, come and join this thing. Because the last time they tried it, they had about 14 people. That was their massive. And of those 14 people, one of them, every single time posted, we need to keep the Queen. So we're having a discussion about council rights over dogs. We need to keep the Queen. Because the Queen's interested in you keeping your dog in your backyard, apparently. So we approached British Monarchist League, we approached the Liberty, we approached every single political group and said, come into this community, be a part of it, as well as allowing individuals. There was no lecturer, there was no teacher, there might have been a guru. and that who Connor Gearty was, he would come in and he would challenge people. He'd say, now you said this thing about civil rights or human rights. What did you mean by it? Not, oh, I'm going to tell you what human rights is and here's my lecture. There was no sequence. We allowed learners to come into the platform at any time. This ran for 14 weeks, mind you. Most traditional MOOCs run for about 4 to 6 weeks. This was 14 weeks. What was interesting was even though we were talking about this as a civic engagement project, we're going to crowdsource the Constitution, when we did our research after at the end of this, every single person in that platform expected to learn something. So they were there to crowdsource the Constitution, but they were also hoping to learn. And how did they learn? They learned through practice. Yeah? Who gets to write a damn constitution? Not many people. So you got there and you were writing clauses and you were commenting on clauses. We used an ideation platform. In fact, the people who provided this ideation platform are talking this afternoon, Crowdicity. We used an ideation platform to allow people to come up with ideas, comment, debate, vote, do all that stuff. But they did more than that. They debated and they argued. And mostly, they talked about what it meant being a citizen in the UK. What did it mean to be British? Because that is a fundamental part of a constitution. It sets up some of the conditions. Yes, there were a few lawyers, but in the main, it was just normal, average, everyday citizens participating in writing an incredibly complex document. For a first pilot, we had 1,500 users. They put in 725 ideas, 125,000 views, 10,000 comments, all those numbers. What they did do is they wrote a constitution. 1,500 people got together and wrote a British constitution that was handed to the Speaker of the House of Commons. They wrote 1 million words amongst them. So this wasn't just someone coming in for a day and an hour and going out. 75% of people said they learnt something, and 88% were influenced by the community. And what was fascinating for us is participation went up as the 14 weeks went on, not down. So in traditional MOOCs, you get, let's say you get 50,000 people enrolled in the first week, about 6 finish it at the end of the 6 weeks. We had more people participating in the 14th week than we had in the first week. Why? Because what we tried to build was practices into which people could actually engage and think and debate and participate. Was it all great? No. There were things that didn't work. We did have an occasional troll. We had one death threat for treason, was the actual death. Poor Connor got a formal death threat that he was going to be hung for treason outside the House of Commons because he was advocating for the end of the Queen. That was, funnily enough, from a user who was located in Trenton, New Jersey, who was a male who went by the name of Bodicea, someone who probably doesn't understand history particularly well, or treason for that matter. So there were 2 things that we really that we thought this challenged. It was in education, redefining what the massive actually means. We were looking at massive impact. We got good press. We got, as I said, an 8,500 word constitution that was relatively legally binding. There were some odd things in there. But we got it into the hands of the Speaker of the House of Commons. That's pretty important. We were interested in how the massive can create ripples, not just giant rocks thrown into the water, but how this ripple just maintained its own momentum. And that was represented for us in how the numbers kept going up rather than down. What was really important, and maybe because it's my academic background, this was the first time we were able to use a crowd to analyse, to solve problems. One of the things that we're doing as our sort of next step project is we want to look at how we can use the crowd to bring in data around climate change, so photos of their own erosion on their beaches, and have the crowd analyse and find the patterns. This may go right back to something that, certainly from my generation, I remember, was anyone ever involved in the SETI project? We used to have the little app running in the back of your computer processing like the billions of pieces of data that came out of satellites. That's the kind of model we're thinking about with people rather than apps in the back of a computer. And also we wanted people to have a massive experience. You know, we wanted people to learn something, we wanted people to enjoy themselves. We wanted people to walk out and say, that was something really, really interesting. And in fact, 50% of the people, so most of the people on the platform came to us afterwards and said, what's next? So we did jokingly try to find other countries without constitutions. One of which is New Zealand, and I think the other might be Canada. I'm not sure. Do you have one? New Zealand definitely doesn't have one, I know that. That was the one I think we were looking at next. Iceland, that's another one I think that doesn't have a... Pardon? Have they just made one? There we go. We just missed the chance. Oh well. It was a crowdsource one as well, so there you go. The other thing we wanted to redefine was open. What it meant to make it open. As I said, there was no entry point, there was no exit point. We wanted to make it as open and as easy as possible. One of the great advantages of Crowdicity, the platform we used, is it's got such a light entry point. So little data was required of the people to go into it. Email and a made-up name is enough. We wanted it to be open participation when we wanted to open up the academy, open up the university, you know, and bring it out into the world. People often refer to universities as ivory towers. Well, we wanted to break that ivory tower down. And we also wanted it to be open engagement, people to actually spend their time talking, not trying to provide, you know, detailed rationales or trying to learn how to use something. We wanted people to spend their time talking. Interestingly, the institute we worked with inside the LSE, the Institute of Public Affairs, insisted they wanted physical events as well as online events. So they'd have these physical events where they'd get 5 people turning up. But when we ran this, we were just inundated. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions. These are the sort of things that we want to move to next. What happens when you empower a community to learn and engage in social change? What are the consequences of that? Because in reality, the political systems of most countries don't generally do that. In fact, there's an argument that, in fact, they often disempower a community. So what happens when you do empower them? Does this help us build an informed digital citizenry? Does it help us get people who are willing and able to make informed decisions about the information that they're provided with? This constitution that these guys created looks nothing like some of the constitutions around the world, because it's actually what concerns people. Yes, there was bits about how Parliament worked and stuff like that, but in the main, it was about what it meant to be British, what were human rights, what were civil rights. And can this be more than civic engagement? Can we go further into problem solving, capacity development and change? Can we use this to transform leadership in the developing world? Can we use this to transform health and social care around the world? And in reality, that's kind of what's next. And that's where we want to take it. Thank you.